it's Coach Tori, and this is Raising Runners. We talk running, fitness, mental health, and so many more topics. As the founder of a youth running program, I approach all of our conversations with our youth athletes in mind and kind of have a focus around those things. But as you will see, we are finding that all of these topics relate to runners and people who like to move and do fitness or anything like that. Relates to everybody. Check it out. All right, everybody, we're back from spring break. Who's excited? Probably just me, but okay, we're back. It was spring break for anybody who's does spring break stuff, but I told you I'd be back in May. We're back. We are trying to figure out a schedule. It's me trying to figure out a schedule, getting some guests in, refocusing a little bit. So I thought a fun way to start off our return from spring break would be with a super special guest who's been talked about a couple times, probably on the show. He is a recent retiree, lifelong runner, animal enthusiast. Let's see what else is on that list. Undefeated, undisputed champion of the world, Jeffy Boy Williams, my dad. Hey, Dad.
Hey, Tori, how are you?
I thought I had, especially because, like 20 minutes ago, as I'm putting James to bed, I was like, I had a whole intro in my head of like all the things. I was like, every accolade I could think of for you. And I lost like 90% of them as I was talking.
Well, I had 3 things on my list for that, and you hit them all. If I was going to introduce myself, I'm Jeff Williams. I'm a retired accountant, father of 3 amazing children, which you're obviously one of them. Also father, I guess a sort of father to 2 stepchildren as well. And I've been running for 45 years. And I'm embarrassed to say that I continue to learn things that I should have known 20 years ago and did not know. So.
Well, and that's kind of like really what I wanted to talk to you about, because I know you've been a runner forever, but like also I think as a kid who sees their parent, like, not that you don't exist as a person, but like, there's a certain age where you're just dad. You don't like, I don't see you as someone who runs or has like hobbies or any kinds of other things. But then like, there comes a point where it's like, oh, now we run together and like running is a thing, but I knew you used to run, but that doesn't like register as a real part of your life because you know what I mean? Like, it's like a weird kid thing.
Yeah, and it's not like you and I like grab coffee and talk about like the good old days when I was a runner in high school or college, right? So that's just not part of what we talk about. We talk about the things that are going on in real time today, and we don't talk about the past.
Right. Well, and it's so funny because I feel like a lot of what I know about you, and I'm going to ask you in a second to talk about, your running journey, but I feel like Mom was always telling me about running stuff. And actually, even after one of my favorite Coach T episodes, and she was talking about triple jump, and then Mom was like, your dad did triple jump. And I'm like, somehow that just never, I don't remember that, but I'm like, yeah, I hear all about like your running stuff, not even from you. So it's just kind of funny.
I did do a couple of triple jumps, but that wasn't my specialty. I was, yeah. No, so I had done the triple jump more in high school than in college. And I was a sort of a long jump specialist.
She might've had her facts wrong, but.
Yeah. No. I had done it, so I can't say that she was wrong. Wouldn't say that.
I won't say it on air. Hey, Mom. Okay, so 45 years of running. Where does that start?
Yeah, so it starts in high school, and freshman in high school, it's probably the same today. There's sort of 3 seasons, right? It's fall, winter, spring. So my friends are going out for football. I go out for football. They make me an offensive lineman, and how big I am. I'm tall, but I'm not very big, right? At the time I was 105 pounds, but now
I'm 150
pounds. Yeah, I was a rail. And because I showed no other skills, I became an offensive lineman. After that, I went into wrestling and again, weighed 105 pounds. I was the only guy on the team that weighed 105 pounds. So I became the varsity 105-pound wrestler for the season. At the end of that season, I didn't plan to do any running after that. It was really my coach from wrestling said, I think you got a great future in running. I thought I was going to say wrestling, but he said running.
Like not this, something else.
Yeah, something else, something that, I'm like, oh, that's great. Maybe I'll be back next year. He said, So anyway, so I went out for outdoor track. He was an assistant coach for the outdoor track team as well. So he did have some motivation, but he saw me running against wrestlers. And, yeah, I was the best running wrestler. I was not the best running runner. So when I got to the outdoor track team and, they, again, tall, skinny kid, you're thinking it's a distance runner. They put me in the distance running team and I wasn't faring so well. But then about 3 or 4 weeks in, they had like a sort of a fitness test, and one of the things was to do was run 150 meters, all out. And I was the fastest or one of the two fastest kids on the team. So I suddenly became no longer a distance runner. I was now a sprinter, and that really was what I didn't know I was a sprinter, and it worked out well. I ended up being state champion in 3 sprinting events. Again, in the state, by the way, for everyone, is the state of Rhode Island, so it is the smallest state. And then I was also second in the high jump. I jumped 6'4". Now again, it's Rhode Island. The winner was jumped 6'8". So there's a big difference. You can see sort of like, okay, there was probably not that many kids jumping. And then in New England, and like they had a New England championship, I was second in the 200 meters in all of New England. So, good sprinting high school career. College, very similar. I went to a Division III school, so I wasn't running for Oregon or Arkansas. I'm running for Texas Tech. I'm running for Widener University. Great school, loved it. And but I was, I think the only thing I would reference there was I was just outside All-American status in long jump. That was my sort of specialty there. Did all the sprints, but I probably peaked as a freshman in college and senior in high school in the running events. But long jump, I was probably, I think I ended up 2 out of the All-American spots. So that was either 6 made All-American and I was 8, or 8 made All-American, I was 10. So again, in the nation for Division III athletes.
Now,
But
go ahead.
yeah. So, but as you probably know, right, and you experienced probably as well, you ran the 800 meters in college. Like once you leave college, and if you're a sprinter, there's no sprints on weekends to go running with it. It was a tough transition to then go into sort of distance running.
Yeah, well, we talk, I don't even know who we is. I talk about this to a lot of people all the time. Is like, yeah, you're a sprinter and you love running, and then you become an adult and it's like, what do I do now? I learn how to run longer, or I just like raise kids in the neighborhood. Like,
Yeah, no,
there's like nothing
exactly.
else to do.
Yeah, I mean the shortest thing you can get is 5K, and that's really long when all you run is a 400 meters, right? So there's a big difference, a whole different skill set.
Yeah.
So yeah, so then the journey is a lot of what things we you and I have been probably doing over the last 10 years. I would do local races here. Um, I very rarely run with anybody, but I ran with a guy named Jerry Paulson for a while. He worked with me. By the way, his son Tim
Yeah,
Paulson.
Tim. We've
Yeah,
watched him in CrossFit, right?
yeah, he's a CrossFit guy. But yeah, he was a much better athlete than me, Jerry Paulson, and Tim is, I'm sure, as well. Um,
Right.
so, but we would run together. Train. We started training for a marathon. I ended up getting into New York City Marathon. He unfortunately didn't get in. He did the Marine Corps Marathon. Again, much better runner than me. I had a terrible experience in the New York City Marathon. I sort of swore I was never doing another marathon again. So I made a bunch of mistakes. I mean, in hindsight, it's so obvious to me the mistakes I made. We can go through those in a bit. But yeah, at the time, I sort of felt like, okay, you know what? I ran 17 miles. I should be able to run 26. And no, ran 17. And then I broke, couldn't do anymore, and then had to finish the last like 9 miles, you know, just walking, jogging, walking, sitting down, walking, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, going back just a little bit. So after college, was it just like you needed to do something to stay fit? So you're like, I guess I'll just like go out running now, or was there like some kind of break, or like how did that look?
Yeah, I think I'd say I ran most of those years, but it was really more like just running the neighborhood, trying to go out and run a mile or two. And it really was a fitness thing. I have a passion for health and fitness, so it really was just that. But again, I played a little bit of tennis. I bought a bike, and we did some bike runs. Where you sort of run 5 miles, bike, 10 miles, and then run another 5. So
Yeah.
did those off and on. So yeah, it really was just a quest for fitness. I think I've even told you before, like during running, like while I'm running, I don't love running. Like I love having run. Like I like
Yeah.
the challenge of it. I like the satisfaction of being done. But I can't believe most people. I know I hear people talk about the runner's high and in the zone, and I think you've got a podcast on this. I can't say I ever experienced any of those things. Now, that'll probably come back to one of the things on my list is I always ran incorrectly once I got out of college. I mean, I had a college coach and a high school coach, so I probably ran correctly there for what I was doing. But after college, I didn't have a coach, didn't read about running. I just did what I thought I should do, and that was, pick a 5 mile loop and run it as fast as you can. And I was big on data, so I would write the time down, and then next time out, same thing, try to run the same route, try to run it faster. And that's, I mean, I'm embarrassed to say I've done that for sort of 30 years, the same thing. Like that's all I did.
Well, and I mean, I guess maybe you don't actually know, like, were people sharing the information they had? Did people actually have good information on running back then? Because I feel like even now, like, it's definitely more of a newer thing, people talking about proper training for distance and different kinds of things like that, and what we should and shouldn't be doing. And maybe it's just like social media and how it's easy to spread information out that I'm to do a lot of work to find it. But I guess maybe you might not even know if
Yeah,
that
no,
was a
but
thing then.
yeah, there's a lot more information available today, readily available. Right? You can search it online, but then there was no. I didn't have a cell phone. There was no internet. It didn't exist, right? So you're dealing with the 19. I mean, you're talking about the 1980s into the 90s. Yeah, stuff started to come around about that time, but it wasn't like it was readily available. If you wanted to do a marathon, you might buy a book uh,
Right.
and find it from there. But I never did that. It was really just, how hard is this concept, right? You sort of you run, try to run further, you try to run faster, and lo and behold, that's not the answer. There's now, and even at the time, there were a bunch of studies, and I think there were athletes like Alberto Salazar and other ones that were referenced. I'm actually reading, quote, reading via an audio book. Um, a book on 80-20, right? And 80-20 is the first one on my list, which is, 80% of your run should be in this sort of low effort zone. And you may recall, like, I only discovered that a year ago. Um,
Yeah.
I was when I was listening to a different audio book about running like the pros, I think is what it was called.
Yeah.
And that same thing, same concept was, that's the way they train. But most amateurs, so I'm not alone, most non-professional runners do what I do, which is map out a route, run it, and then try to run it faster the next time, faster the next time. That's what a lot of people did. And I think the word is getting out that that's not the right way to get your cardiovascular system enhanced, how to run faster. It just really breaks your body down. And you're really going backwards, not forwards.
Oh, yeah. And I think a lot of us too get stuck in, like, the maybe it's the pride aspect of it, but the pacing that we're doing. So that whole 80-20 idea of those slow or easy efforts, like in your head, you're like, I don't want to be running around for 8 miles at a 10-minute pace. I will be out there forever. 10-minute pace, 12-minute pace, whatever it is. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, Kipchoge's out there doing his, easy effort at what, 7-minute pace or something,
Yeah.
right? And he's doing
Probably 6 minute
20.
race. Yeah.
Right, so it's like it just looks different. So it's so hard for us as, like, pedestrian runners or whatever it is to be like, yeah, I'll go spend 3 hours covering not a huge distance because I have to run slow.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny 'cause that's a lot of what's in this book. The first book I referenced, that Run Like a Pro, was good information. The one I'm reading now, the 80-20 by Matt, I think it's Fitzgerald, um, has a ton of studies referenced in it. So you get a lot more of the science behind it. So yeah, I'll give you the reference to it so you can, at some point listen to it or read it. It
Yeah.
is fascinating. There actually is a few um, children's study in there as well that they reference. I know there's not a ton of that stuff done. That one they referenced that I just heard about was around changing people's strides and what works and what doesn't work, and the fact that changing strides are hard to do for most people. And the thing that you just referenced a second ago, also pacing yourself, is what you think is maybe a moderate or a low effort may not be. And it's hard to run in that sort of talking zone where you can sort of run and talk at the same time. So, and I run alone, so I don't talk when I run. So I have a hard time figuring out, like, am I in that zone right now? Could I talk right now?
I know it's funny too, because the few people that I coach who also often are running alone, and like you said, everyone struggles with finding that pace. And some of them will say like, oh, I tried singing while I was out, or I was talking to myself. And I'm like, that must be so cute. Like out there running, like talking alone. But I do remember I used to do that. Oh my gosh, however many years ago, when I was living off of whatever highway, Route 3 or something. And I would run like at night along the highway and I would sing. And I don't think I was doing it for any real reason, because I definitely didn't know all this then. But I do remember doing that and being like, oh, this is probably so weird.
Yeah, yeah. So it is hard to pace yourself, and I still like I love data, as I referenced before. So I use a Fitbit watch, so I look at the end of each of my runs, and it gives you sort of what your mile times were. So I'm pretty good now about tracking. If I'm going to run right now, I'm in a zone where I'm running 35 miles or so a week. So I know if I'm going to 20% of that's going to be hard, where are those hard miles at? And I've got those mapped out on my schedule. But everything else needs to be in that sort of, for me, nine and a half, probably range and above time, per mile. And so if I'm not conscious of it, you feel kind of good, like, oh, I'm just running good. You see someone in front of you running, like, oh, I should probably just catch that guy. Like,
Right.
and
Yeah.
suddenly
Like I
you're
got to
like, oh,
pass them and keep going.
yeah, I'm like 8.5 now. Like, gosh, that's definitely not for me in that sort of low effort zone.
Right. No, I definitely want to talk about your current training, but because I feel like I lose track of where I am if I don't stick chronologically here.
Yep. Go ahead.
Back to your first marathon.
Yep.
And I feel like the only thing I know about that, which hopefully is even a true thing, was that you fell asleep. And I only know that because as like a kid, you brag about weird stuff.
Yeah.
And that was like some kind of strange fact I used to tell people all the time. Is like, well, my dad went to sleep while he was running a marathon. And
Yeah.
I don't, but I do like remember repeatedly telling people that. I'm like, why was that a cool fact to share? So
Yeah.
let's hear those mistakes.
Yeah. So the mistakes I made, probably three huge ones, right? So it was poor nutrition. I don't think I ate hardly at all. Again, that wasn't a huge thing that people, again, in my circles, people are talking about nutrition while you were running. So I
Yeah.
didn't eat anything during the run until I ran into someone who had cookies, and I ate some cookies at like mile 14.
Oh my gosh.
Hydration was a little bit more of a thing. You had to drink some water, but really for me, my failure in this one, as well as I did one in Miami in 2020, right before the pandemic broke. Um, Same mistake I made, which was my long run. My longest run was like 17 miles, and at the end of 17 miles, I was struggling. It wasn't like I finished 17 and I still felt fresh. I could run another 10. It was I ran 17 and I was done. And then I experienced the same thing in the New York City Marathon. So by mile 17 or 18, now I'm at the point of walking, jogging. There's 30,000 people in that race. So at the halfway point, I was in the top 25%. I finished in the bottom 25%. So there's 15,000 people past me in the second half of that race. That's a lot of people.
Wow.
There were people wearing wedding dresses, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh my God, this is demoralizing. But anyway, at one point I felt so bad. I just sort of sat on the curb, and that relief of just sitting after being in such pain for so long, just sort of leaned back and just rested and rested and rested. And next thing I knew, I was like, whoa, I think I just fell asleep, because the noise around you just becomes a buzz. It doesn't,
Yeah.
like, it's sort of, and then I was like, okay, back then there's no Uber. I can't get home. I'm in New York. I don't live in New York. I live in Philadelphia area. I went with someone there, and they're there with their boyfriend, and they were ahead of me. So I'm thinking, I got to get to the finish line somehow. So you just got to keep moving. So it wasn't, people congratulated me for finishing, but it was like, I didn't have a choice. It wasn't like I could have just taken a cab home. If I
Right.
could have, I would have, but I couldn't. So I had to sort of get to the finish line to meet these people so I could get home.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it was a terrible. At the time, I said I wouldn't do another one. I did do another one, and I had a similar experience.
Oh
I didn't sleep
no.
in the second one, though.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So, because I feel like everyone you hear talk about like their New York City Marathon moments of like, the triumph and like loving the atmosphere and all that stuff. And you just were like, nope, never again.
No, it was, my goal was probably, I don't know, it wasn't 3.5 hours, but maybe certainly sub 4 was my goal. I was over 5. I do remember when I was finishing, the guy was announcing like the oldest woman in the race was finishing as well. And it's like, oh my God, did
Great.
this day get any worse?
Right. Oh my gosh. So then when I imagine you took a little bit of break from running then.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I certainly took a break from marathons. And like I said, over the 45 years, there were definitely a year or 2 or 3 that I probably didn't run at all, where I focused more on weight training. But yeah, I went back to sort of shorter distances where I was doing like the Broad Street Run or other runs in the Philadelphia area.
So your next marathon, 2020, you had a similar experience. Did you learn from your first one and just had similar results or?
Yeah, well, I was much better prepared hydration wise, much better prepared, nutrition wise, right? I had a real strategy for what I was going to eat during the race, what miles I was eating stuff. I was drinking water every rest stop. So I had those two things dialed in, but I was up here in Philadelphia area training for a run in Miami. And I had just done the half marathon in Palm Beach, but I had to come back for the holidays, right? Then I'm busy at work. So in January, February, it's the busiest time for accountants. So I didn't get, I was in great shape for the half marathon, did great mid-December for that. And that's why I felt like, okay, I'm in great shape for 13 miles. I felt great at the end of it. I feel like I could, just step it up a little bit and do a marathon, but very similar results from the standpoint of like the training was tough. I was doing it on a treadmill inside, so I wasn't outside running in the real cold weather. I thought I might be better adjusted by being indoors in like 70-degree weather with a sweatshirt on, training for Miami. It just didn't translate. So when I got there, I'd only done a 17-mile run on a treadmill, was my longest run. And again, same result, ill prepared. 17 miles in, you got 9 miles of walking and jogging. Yeah, that one there, I feel like I don't think I'm being overly dramatic. I feel like I almost died.
Oh God.
So I got back to the hotel. I, finally finished. My legs are like spasming, and they're not functioning, correctly. Um, I My hotel was probably about a half mile from the start line. So I get back to the hotel. I urinate for the first time in 4+ hours, and it's like reddish brown.
Oh
And so,
no.
yeah, so I call Reagan. I tell her like, hey, I feel absolutely horrible. Like I even like the last, besides the last 9 miles, like it didn't get better when I finished. It wasn't like, oh, what a
Like
relief.
I'm done. Great. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, man, I feel absolutely horrible. Then this happens, and she's like, looks it up. She's like, that could be rhabdomyolysis. I'm like, what is that? Like, oh, let me look at that. Like, that sounds serious.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether it was. So that's why I felt like I was close to really being sick, but I managed to take a shower, get down to the lobby because I had to check out and had to fly back to Philly.
Oh my
But I didn't have to
gosh.
fly back for like 5 or 6 or 7 hours. So I managed to get down to the lobby, put my bag in the corner, and I just sort of sat in a chair in the corner for about 5 hours in the lobby, just taking some sips of water and eating some crackers, and just slowly feeling a little bit better. And it took a day or two. I mean, I did manage to fly back and not have to go to emergency room, which was my other alternative. Um, but yeah, it was like, man, I've finished runs before, and like when you finish, like, okay, you're done. Your output's done. You feel okay, and I didn't feel okay. I felt like I was really sick. So,
Oh my gosh.
but I'm
I don't
here.
think I knew that. Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
You're here.
yeah, I'm here.
Wow. I do remember you saying it was tough, but I didn't really.
Yeah, I don't think we ever debriefed. I mean, I know you were tracking at the time, and I knew going into it, I debriefed with you like from a standpoint of, yeah, it was horrible.
Yeah.
Last 9 miles stunk, but we talked about the run part, but I didn't get into probably the details of like, okay, this was bad.
That sucks. And then you haven't done one since, right?
No, no, that
Okay.
was right before the pandemic. I was going to ask you, that's one of my 4 questions for you, which is, are you going to do a marathon?
Uh, I go back and forth like every other day. I don't know. I feel like I do want to because, it's like one of those like bucket listy runner things. But then I'm just like, that distance isn't really my thing. I mean, what is my thing? Who knows? But I don't know. I feel like I'm not really like, you've seen me just like, plod through a half marathon in Florida whenever we get through it. And I'm like, I tried to train and then I just didn't. And here I am, you know.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, you were like me 20 years ago, right? Is juggling that, finding the time to train is absolutely, it's a huge commitment, right? So as a retiree, and we can go through my schedule in a bit, but most of my focus when I get up in the morning is, you know, what's my schedule with for running, lifting, and mobility? What's my diet going to be? I have it all wired in, like it's all scheduled out for me. Like I know what I'm going to do every day. Um,
yeah.
and it's my primary focus. My primary focus isn't like, okay, my job, my getting that stuff done, taking care of the children. Like my focus is me. Unfortunately, it's me. It's just being
Yeah.
yeah. So I'm up for one now because I do feel like with what I saw was the game changer of this 80/20 training. Like I don't know that before this past year or two, I ever ran the distance I was about to run. So for half marathons, maybe I worked my way up to like 11 miles and said, okay, I'm good enough. I'll make 13. And the
Hmm.
same thing with the marathon, which didn't work out. Was doing 17 and thinking will get carried through for the day. It'll be easier and get 26.
Yeah.
But the most recent half marathon I did, I ran the half marathon in training at least 3 times.
Yeah.
So I feel like, and again, I'm not sure I'm going to go and run 3 marathons before I go run a marathon. But I'll also know that if I run 20 miles and I can't take another step, I'm not ready. If I run
Right.
20 miles and I feel like, okay, you know what, I could have gone further, I'm not going to because I don't want to break my body down. But it's a different feeling. I now know that the feeling I had in my training when I did 17 miles, I knew I couldn't take another step. And I don't know why I thought when I got to the marathon, I was going to be able just to get carried through and make it that far.
Yeah. No, I was thinking that when you kept saying 17, and I was like, I don't feel like that's what anybody's goal is to get to 17 and then think they have the nine. Like usually we're talking 20 or 22.
Yeah,
And I'm like, 17 feels a little short.
yeah, it definitely was short of any book you would read, any program you would read. But it's also like, what you just mentioned as well with training. It's brutal to go and run 17 miles, right? You're talking about 2.5 hour minimum effort.
Yeah.
And especially when I wasn't sort of applying this 80/20 concept, it was like, okay, every step is you might be going out too fast, you're about to break, you might have to walk, you might have to do walk run. So I find running much more enjoyable now, this last 12 months, than I
Yeah.
did my entire 38 years before that. So
Yeah.
so I'm up
Well,
for another one if you want to do it. But I'll probably wait for you at this point in time. But I don't know if I can get in this kind of shape. I'm in pretty good shape now. I don't know if I can get in this kind of shape again if I get out of shape.
so time is ticking. I have to decide soon.
Yes, at
Yeah.
60-year-old, I mean, I am now you're not conscious of time. I am. I am conscious of the fact that I've got anywhere from 0 to 20 remaining years on this planet, right? So it's like, okay, there's a end point that you don't think about when you're 20. When you're 60, you think about that end point, and I don't know whether it's 1, 0, or 20. And I know I'm not going to be able to run a marathon in 20 years. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess, and we'll talk about our upcoming race in a little bit, but depending on how that goes, we'll see what I'm thinking. Because there's been a couple the past year, it's been like, oh, maybe I'll plan one for the spring, maybe I'll plan one for the fall. But just like you're saying, is like, I don't want to do one if I'm not ready because my body just doesn't deserve that. So I'm like, I need to have the time to train. And again, I'm sure you've heard me complain countless times of like, I'm trying to train and I just can't do it. So yeah, it
yeah,
is on the list though.
okay. Well, if it's on the list, because I feel like if so, you referenced the run that we're thinking about. So I was going to ask you how your training is going for our 12-hour relay race. because I hate to say I'm dialed in because I don't know how you're feeling, but I feel like
Uh-huh.
I am dialed in. That doesn't mean I'm not going to get hurt in a week and
Oh,
be
geez.
completely unable to run. But at the
Right.
moment, I'm right on pace with where I want to be.
Well, I'm sure my answer on how training's going will be shorter than yours, so I'll go first on how mine's been going. I will say I'm having a killer week right now. It is Wednesday, and I have 5.5 miles registered for the week. So
Sweet. All right. Well, I know you started with like 1 mile, so that's good.
yeah,
We
yeah,
have 80 days, by the way. There's 80 days left.
yeah, yep. I mean, we'll see. Um, yeah, so it's it's going. My back is still like just so not happy with running, but I am going to see my chiropractor friend hopefully in the near future to see if she has any suggestions on anything that'll help. Um, and I've had my alarm set for 4 a couple days this week to go run, and then haven't done it. Um, so because like last night James was up at 12, then the dog was up at 1, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not getting up and going running now.
No, I'm shaking my head, not because I'm
Uh,
disappointed in you. I'm shaking my head because I would never, I can't do AM runs like that. I can't do it. It's too optional when the alarm's going off. I've tried it before. Alarm goes off. It's like, man, no, 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 this is not the time to run right now.
Ugh, I know. It sucks because I well, I'm gonna give it a try for the next couple weeks, is having it be the morning run, because I was doing nap runs with the stroller, but then it's like, oh, I have work I have to get done during naps, and like having money, I guess, is more important. Who knows? Or like mowing the lawn, like that has to get, so it's like, okay, nap time's getting eaten up by like actual life responsibilities. And then I mean, tonight I got lucky that he was asleep by 8:45, but most nights it's like 9:15. I'm creeping out of the room, and I'm like, do I put my shoes on now to go for a long run? Like, ah, so yeah, I'll figure it out. But yes, that's my training. It's going.
All right. Well, we got 80 days still.
Yeah,
I'm probably a little bit further along than you are at the moment. So
just a
that,
little.
but we can, I think it'll come down to our strategy for how do we break up the 12 hours, right? So we're at the moment we're figuring we're going to run 6 hours each. Then it's a question of whether we run, each loop's 2 miles. Do we do two and then tap the next person and have them do two? Do we
Oh
do
my God.
10 and then tap and someone say, let's do like 10? Like, okay. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see how things go.
Yeah, well, so for anybody who cares, who's still listening to us ramble on about our running lives, we're doing a 12-hour relay race, and there's like kind of no rules except for somebody always has to be running. You can't be running at the same time, and it's a 2-mile loop, and only full loops will count when it hits midnight. So our initial thought was, well, at least my initial thought was like each of us takes like 2 hours on, 2 hours off, back and forth to get to the end. But yeah, like it is, we can kind of divide it any way we want. But tell everybody what your training's looking like, because you've done some fun stuff already, I feel like.
Yeah, yeah. So here's my training is just on a week by week basis. I look at my total miles. Right now I'm at 30. I'll get to 36 or 30, 36 to 39 this week, depending on what my next couple runs are. Did 10 on Monday, and 10 was a relatively easy run. I went to a local park, and it was like first time I'd been there, and it was nice and smooth. And after 10 miles, I got in the car and came home like, oh, this feels I could actually do other things. And I'd say years ago, I could if I ran 10 miles, I was done for the day, man, at 100% done. And then I do intervals on Tuesday, so my weeks are all the same for the most part. So 10 Monday intervals. I did 6 miles of intervals. 6 total miles, so it's actually 4 miles of hard running. 7-minute mile pace is what I do at half-mile increments. So that's that one. Long runs are Thursday, so I take Wednesday off because I take care of cats at an animal shelter, and I'm usually tired from Tuesday. So Thursday's my long run. I'm planning to do 13 this week. I did 16 last week, and it was a lot. I felt pretty bad after 16, so I'm gonna dial it back to 13 this week. And then I make up the difference on Saturday. I'll do at this moment it says 7, but I might go back to the same loop and do 10. That's why I might end up anywhere between 36 and 39 miles.
Yeah. That sounds awesome. And then you do strength too, right?
Yeah, so that's my yeah. So every week I sort of divvy it up between lifting, running, abs and mobility, and I do a body scan as part of my sort of. I won't show you, but I've got sort of a spreadsheet that sort of tracks all those four categories in my fitness category. And yeah, so I do lifting 3 times a week. I told you I keep changing. You know, I do it for about 6 weeks. I use the Strong app, which I can sort of just load in what my workout is. I don't get bored. I do it for about 6 weeks straight, the same workout 3 times a week. The weight changes a little bit depending on whether if I can do the entire workout, like the entire 5 sets of bench press, I'll increase the weight so I can, you know, just continue to improve. So I do that 3 times a week, and then abs and mobility, which is something I probably underrated along for up until the last couple of years. Um, you know, mobility and recovery is probably one of my focal points is to focus on that. At 60, I didn't focus on those things, and now ankle mobility isn't great. Hip pain is there, and it's not very mobile. My hips aren't great, so I do a lot of 90-90 type mobility. I do a lot of planks just on the ab side and the core side. So I do that 3 times a week as well. So it's about 9 to 12 workouts per week sprinkled in. So like last night I did all 3 of those: mobility, lifting, and running. And then today I didn't do any because I had the animal shelter, and then tomorrow's the long run. So
Oh my gosh, you sound so busy with workouts.
like I told you, man, I wake up in the morning and that's my focus. And Reagan's like, oh well, I'm like, I'm preparing to go for a run. She's like, oh, you're gonna go for a run in like an hour from now? But I do prepare for a long time. Like I'm mentally ready to go out there. It's like it's cold out there. Let me wait till it warms up this afternoon. I'll do my run then. But I always do it. I very rarely miss any of these workouts. Occasionally something might happen and I've got to move one around, but I have the checklist has like sort of a star at the end or sort of an X. So if I don't get all 3 mobility, at least all 3 run workouts, in this case I'm doing 4, or all 3 lifting, I get an X instead of a star. So
Oh my
it's
gosh.
like being in second grade again. Right?
Yeah, you have your token economy and everything. Wow.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about, oh, go ahead.
No, so that's just my fitness section. But then I have a nutrition section, health section, relationships, and then sort of an all other category. There's about 25 things I track on a weekly basis. I sort of schedule out, like I want to catch up with my kids once a week, right? So I try to catch up with either you or Matt or Alex, once a week. Animal volunteers on there for 2 times a week. Oatmeal 3 times a week. So I've got a bunch of food ones. Fish once a week, beef once a week, oatmeal 3 times a week, veggies, fruit 3 times each a week. So,
Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
Again, this is what people do when they have a lot of time on their hands.
Well,
And maybe it's also the way I'm motivated, right? I like having a schedule out because otherwise I could go a month and not think about, hey, have I had any fish lately? Like it's just not part of my normal diet, but it's on
yeah.
the checklist. I make sure every week I get some salmon, and just have a salad and just the things that I would skip otherwise. And it is important for nutrition. So
No, exactly. And I feel like retiring is, especially because you were so busy, like could be really hard if you didn't have like a way to kind of keep yourself accountable and on topic with all of your stuff. So that
yeah,
makes
at the time I
sense.
didn't have time to come up with my list, but again, in retirement, you got all kinds of time to come up with lists, come up with plans, come up with all kinds of things. And I change them a lot. Like as you know, I read something like this 80-20 thing that changed everything for me, right?
Yeah.
So like all of those things, like I do as I learn something new, I'll change my plan a little bit.
Um, I was just thinking that it's funny that you are probably the only person that's ever been on the podcast that like doesn't have like a romanticized view of running or like a just like loves running. Because I feel like everyone else, and like me included, sometimes probably gets like weirdly giddy about like, I just love running so much. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
you are super committed and like focused, and I'd even say passionate, but like you definitely don't, you don't talk all like, warm and fuzzy about your love for running.
Yeah, I have that on the list. I have like, the spiritual mindfulness aspects of it, and like I don't do any of those things. I don't do gratitude journal. It's stuff I should probably do. But yeah, for me, running is solely about the result. I don't actually, like I said, I don't enjoy while it's being done, but I do enjoy the satisfaction of having done
Yeah, welcome back from spring break, everybody.
it.
Negative Jeffy talking about how running sucks.
Yeah, and I know it's like, but I also recognize that I'm probably a bit of an anomaly, and everyone else I talk to, they love, and again, I gotta believe that everyone feels similar to me. Maybe they just don't articulate that way, because as you know, running while you're running, we all know it would feel better to stop, right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
am I wrong? Like, it's uncomfortable moving your body and having your breathing heavy and feeling the pounding of the pavement. Again, I enjoy doing it to some degree because I know that I'm going to feel good about having accomplished it. But I don't know. I feel like I definitely going to feel better if I stop.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like I've had runs like that and then I usually end up stopping. But yeah, like most of the time I'm not actually thinking that. I don't know.
Yeah. No, and there's a lot of mindfulness. Like it when you stop, right? Is it because your body makes you stop, or is it your mind? It's you allow those negative thoughts to creep in, and I try not. I try to have the time pass. It doesn't always pass so especially when you're running alone. Like I
Oh
do
my
all my
gosh.
training alone, and you probably do as well. But it's tough training alone all the time. So again, a lot of music, a lot of podcasts, a lot of books on tape.
Have you ever found or tried to find a running group near you now? Because I feel like, you're in like a good area for running, right?
I just actually started looking at it probably a week ago. Like I'm not on Facebook. Like I don't do any social media. If I initially I do one thing, and it's animal related, right? So
Yeah.
I don't do anything people related. Um, so yeah, I mean, once I moved away from that guy Jerry Paulson, like that was my last guy I ran with, and after that, it's really been I think almost all solo running.
Yeah.
So I am going to try to find like running. I play golf a lot too, right? So when you play golf, you play golf with someone that you just bump into there, and then you're hooked up for the round, and you start chit chatting. I don't find that with running. Maybe I'm not a sociable runner. I don't bump into someone running and start chit chatting with them. I think that's creepy, right? They're gonna think like, okay, dude, I'm just here to run, man. I didn't want to have
Right.
a conversation. Where at golf, I think people are very social, and I do meet people there, and they're like, "Oh yeah, let's catch back up for another round." But I haven't found that for running.
Yeah.
Although I do know it's a very social group.
Right. I know.
Yeah,
I would say like runners love to talk to each
they
other about
do.
running. There's got to be a running store, like a shoe store by you, right? There's a running store by you.
There's a couple running stores by me, and that's where I get their shoes. And I should just ask them, like, "Hey, are there any running clubs that I should be joining or can join?"
Yeah, literally, I feel like every running shoe store has their own running group that meets at some point. So you should ask them next time you're in.
Okay, that's good advice. I was gonna. That was one of my things on my list was if you could give me any advice on running, and I think you just gave it to me.
Yeah, that's
Find
probably
someone
it.
to run with. Yeah.
You're crushing it otherwise. I don't think I have any other words of wisdom except for trying to figure out the flow state thing. I do feel like at some point in your running life, you gotta find that flow, time passing without noticing all that.
Okay, I'll work on that. I did listen to that podcast too, and I felt like it didn't apply to me. Like, oh,
Uh,
I don't get it.
what do you mean it's an apply to you?
Flow state. Yeah,
Um,
but I do know
well,
everyone talks about it. I just don't.
yeah, everyone talks about it. And I think people also have like a different view. I mean, like everyone has their own little version of what all that can mean, but flow state is like been studied scientifically as well. So, but I do have a YouTube video that has not come out yet because it was one of the ones I was telling you about that has continued to give me editing trouble. So that one will have probably a little more info that might be helpful. I'll let you
Okay,
know.
now I look for it. You and I live too far apart to train together. That's the difficulty, right? It's commuting an hour and a half to sort of go for a long run is difficult. Although I could do probably a long run, we could probably do one of those.
Yeah,
'Cause
you
then you
can
at least
push the
do a little bit.
stroller
Yeah.
and help me
Well, I don't
out.
mind. That'll keep me at the right pace.
Yeah.
Unless I'm the guy pushing it, because I don't know that I can push the stroller.
Oh, yeah. I was thinking you would push the stroller.
Oh, okay. Maybe we can share. We can share some stroller pushing.
Yeah, he would like that.
Yeah.
Okay, running bucket list. What is on there besides maybe doing our marathon?
Yeah, another marathon. I think yeah, I started looking at some of these more interesting runs. Like, okay, again, uh, with my clock counting down to when I don't know when it's going to end. I want to do some more interesting runs. I love, like, we went out to Vegas right on the way out to see the Grand Canyon. I just did that run in Vegas. That was great. Um, but there's a bunch of other interesting runs that exist. Like, there's ones that that you have to eat donuts, and so I started looking at some of those. In fact, when I get to Florida, I'm actually going to go to Florida in a couple weeks. Right after, in fact, right after baby James's birthday party. So
Yeah.
after that, I'm heading to Florida, and I'm going to try to find some interesting trail type runs around there. So yeah, I'm going to try to do some more half marathons, more than just the Palm Beach one I do now. So I think it's probably a general list, and it's a general category of more interesting fun runs. I also want to do some more trail runs. I think besides the one we did in Seattle, I don't think I've ever done really a trail race.
Yeah, I was just thinking that one was so fun. I know I didn't feel well for that one, but I did really like that race. Um, there are a couple around here they're starting to do more too. Just like randomly in the woods places. Like there's a 10K. It may have actually already happened at this point, but um I'll have to send some of the ones I find too that sound kind of interesting.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, trail
yeah, 'cause I
run.
think
Okay.
yeah, because up till now, right? I mean, yes, I've done a bunch of half marathons, but like I sort of geared up to do one. I think it's hard to I think those interesting runs tend to be the longer runs, and
Hmm.
I really get geared up to do one of those, but I haven't been historically geared up to do more than one of those a year. So,
Right.
um, so yeah, so I think if now that I feel like with this 80/20 thing, and again, I mentioned 1,000 times already, that
Yeah,
I
I know,
feel like
right? Are they sponsoring you or something?
yeah, it changed my life because now I feel like I can go out and do a 10-mile run and not just be absolutely wiped out.
Yeah.
So I feel like I can do these more of these runs on a more regular basis, and not just target them like once or twice a year.
Yeah, you have to look into some of the ultras. And I know that like, you can't do, millions and millions of those, but I feel like there's also some really interesting ones that are, not the 100 milers. Well, there are some of those too that are pretty interesting, but even well, there you go. He's
Yeah, the
holding up the
rise of the
rise of the
ultra
ultra
runners.
runners.
Yeah, that's another book. This one I'm actually reading, not just listening to.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, there's so many cool races too that people travel for those ones. The one guy that I was coaching, I don't even remember where, somewhere overseas, but he was planning to do like a mountain ultra that was maybe 30 miles or something. But like, it just sounds so cool that there's all these different cool ones too.
Yeah, they all sound amazing. Everyone's the guy's describing in here because he's done marathons before, but he's just writing the stories about it. Trying to do some. There's a couple of ultras in Europe that are sort of the pinnacle, and they require sort of qualifying at different other ultras. So he's describing his journey to do all these other qualifying races. So it's a good book.
Yeah.
So
No, that sounds good.
yeah, but let's get through this 12-hour relay race because
Oh,
that'll
yeah.
probably dictate whether I'm even capable of running more than 26 miles or 17 miles in my case in a single day. So
I think it's going to be way more fun than you're thinking. I literally only am thinking it's going to be super fun. And like I said, I've run 5 miles this week and the week's half over. So,
yeah. Yeah, well, I do picture being fun, but I also picture the fact that you and I won't see each other other than in that little crossover time period. So we'll be there for 12 hours together, but not together.
yeah, actually, when I was like visualizing it in my head, I was picturing like sitting down talking to you while I was on a break, but that actually does not add up now.
No. But I do have a tent. We'll have a great set of supplies. Reagan said she'll come, but let's
Yeah.
be honest, she's not coming.
And if she does, it's like she's going to get bored pretty quick because that
Yeah.
can't be that
She may be
interesting.
there for a couple of minutes, but that's about it. To help me set up, maybe that's about
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be good. So yeah, 12-hour relay in 80 days. That'll be interesting.
it. Yep.
And then yes, I guess see how it goes and then sights set on something else, maybe marathon. I don't know, might be too ambitious. I was gonna say maybe fall marathon, but
Yeah, I think yeah, if we do okay in this 12-hour deal, then I think we got to at least stay in shape enough to do a fall marathon. I think it's really my thought process, but we'll see.
Well, my hang up on the fall marathon, besides like staying fit and having to keep training and finding the time for that, is the weather around here, because that also brings me to my next question about the Rocky Run, since I texted you the other day about that. I feel like we got really lucky last November that it was just randomly really nice, but then the weekend after that, everyone who did the Philly Marathon had like the worst weather in history.
Yeah, they kind of reeled me in. So I told you 10 years ago when we did it, I was never going to do it again. And I stuck to that for 10 years. And then you said, hey, you want to do this year? And I'm like, oh, man.
Yeah.
Okay. So we did it. And it was great.
It was
Um,
great.
it was great. It was a great run. So yeah, I'd say I'll sign up for it. I mean, it's also the timing for me is great because it's about a month before the half marathon in Palm Beach. So it's a great timing to sort of be doing a hard 10 miles.
True.
Yeah. So I'm in if you're in.
Yeah, I'll be in. Yeah. Yeah, we'll tentatively do it. It might be me, stroller. Hopefully the weather's not bad. We'll see.
Okay. We'll see. Yeah,
Yeah.
if it's bad, we can always cancel, right? I mean, I know it's non-refundable. That's okay. We'll survive. I'd rather not get my money back and then stay home on a nice warm day if it's absolutely miserable out than
Yeah.
just go there and be miserable for 10 miles. Because it's not just a 10-mile run. It's the 2 hours ahead of time to, warming up and getting all the other stuff, getting there ahead of time.
Walking as
Yeah.
far to get to the car. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's all that process.
All right. I'm talked into it.
Okay. Here's the other. So you hit my 4 questions.
Oh,
My
cool.
my 8 categories that I was going to rattle off. I think we've hit them all. Like I don't even want to say the words 80-20 again because that was number 1 on my list. But
Guys, he's really not sponsored by 80/20 running.
yeah, I really am not. It's not even the same. It's like weight training, mobility, and running. Yeah, I think that came up at some point in time. Was sort of like
Yeah.
I didn't up until this past probably 2 or 3 years. I didn't use them complementing each other. I sort of did weight training for a period of time and I did running for a period of time, but I didn't really use them all collectively together, which I am now, which is
Right.
a huge mistake from way back when. So younger runners, you should run that or learn that. Recovery. I'm pretty conscious about taking the days off after the long runs, but sleep is the number 1 recovery in my book. And I try to really focus on quantity because I figure quality will take care of itself. But I also use Fitbit. I don't know. Do you use anything to measure your sleep? You're not getting enough sleep anyway, so we can just stop right there. I know that. Do you
It
use
tells me
anything?
every day it's bad. My Garmin does track sleep, but I don't really know if it's like super, you know,
Yeah, it's probably saying that you're doing a lousy job sleeping is what I'm sure it's telling you. So
it says poor every morning.
yeah, yeah. So mine just almost always used to say like, hey, you managed to get like 7 hours and you're in the like high 80s, low 90s is sort of the ranking, which is really good. I've been struggling lately to figure out why my quantity is about the same, but my quality is not quite as good. And I don't know. I'm sort of experimenting now to figure out like what's happened with my quality of sleep. It's whether it's light in the room, it's diet, is it overtraining? What is it that's causing that issue? So that's recovery on me.
Yeah.
I think consistency is the other thing on my list. Was it's surprising if you do something like regularly all the time, you can really get your body can really get adapted to it and get better at it. So I think for many years I sort of ran twice one week, once the next, 3 times the next week. Didn't run it all the following week because I was really busy at work, and that lack of consistency is really it just kills any progress. So I feel so much better now when I'm just every week I know what I'm going to do and it's consistently done.
Yeah. No, I definitely feel like you talk about that, especially in the past like year or so. It's been like, because yeah, again, like you used to be like, oh, well, I'm back into my lifting or I'm back into running or, I'm doing this. And yeah, it definitely seems like it makes a difference.
Yeah, it does. And I think the other thing that there's a saying like, don't let the perfect be the enemy of good, right? Which is, you know, it doesn't have to be the perfect conditions. Hey, I want to go out and run 7 miles. But I only get time to run 4. Like, don't then decide like I'm not going to run it at all, right? Go out and do the 4. You're way better off doing that than not doing anything. And a lot of people, me included, right? If is when there's adversity that you sort of throw up your hands and like, okay, well, I don't have time to do what I want to do, so I won't do it at all. And sometimes it's probably just me looking for a reason not to do something, but it is good to just say, hey, let's something's better than nothing. Nutrition, hydration, we talked a little bit about that one. Enjoying the process, we talked a little bit about that as far as the running goes. I mean, I put that into the category of always having a plan, testing yourself, periodically, enjoy the process. Relationship, spiritual, mindfulness was number 7 on my list. I didn't, we talked a little bit about that. That's probably where I'm the weakest from a
Yeah.
standpoint of just, all the things we talked about. Like I don't journal, I don't do those things. But a number 8 on my list was just periodically doing races. And I do like that, because I do like to have that benchmark. Like I said, the Palm Beach half marathon, having that every year to be able to go look back and see, how you've done each year. Am I progressing? Am I declining? Was it weather related, or is it my conditioning? Which is why I think we should do the Rocky Run, because we just did it last year.
Yeah.
Those are my sort of my eight hot topics. We sort of hit on. I think we hit on almost all of them, if not all of them.
Yeah, no, I love that you're like such a good sport about doing races too. I mean, like you definitely do them on your own, but I also feel like anytime I brought up like, hey, you want to do, the 5K winter series and potentially be freezing your ass off all winter, and you're like, yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah. By the
For
way,
like 12
I
hours.
love those. I love those events. It's humbling, because you see how many talented people there are. I mean, just in a small race like in that Chester County 5K Winter Series, it was like, wow, there are some really talented people that come to these things.
Oh my gosh, there's 60 people in the race and like we're in the bottom half. It's
Yeah, and
crazy.
we're getting and when you're getting lapped, that's humbling.
Yeah.
When you're getting lapped in a 5K, it's like,
Lapped at a
oh my,
5K.
I just got lapped. That dude is flying.
And you're like inches away from getting lapped twice, and you're like, all right.
Okay, yeah. Now he's just rubbing it in. It's
This is
like,
a
oh,
joke.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so
No,
fun.
it does see. I mean, you can see it like when you see it on TV, people running, like how smooth they are. But when you see it in person, it's like, man, that guy is absolutely flying. So
Yeah.
or female, because it's not. I've been lapped by women as well.
Yeah. I was gonna say we definitely got lapped by some ladies this year, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. I feel like there's a lot more I actually wanted to go over, but
Yeah.
it's now
I
been an
keep
hour.
I keep derailing your stuff. This is like
Uh,
you turned it into a long format here. Or at least maybe I turned it into a really long form.
like I said, out of practice, spring break got the best of me. Um,
I know
but
you wanted to
no,
keep it.
this was good.
Yeah, was there other things on your list you wanted to go through?
Well, my list is non-existent, but there were things definitely in my head, but I also feel like I'm sure they're all lost
Well,
in
you
translation
you
here.
know where I am. You can always call me if you have a question that you really wanted the answer to.
Yeah, well, since you're kind of advertising that you have all this free time too, we may just have to have you back when I'm strapped for a guest, and we'll catch up some more about some things I definitely forgot to ask you about. But then
Yeah.
also, since you're quite the running researcher, we can pick your brain for some running info on hot topics
Yeah,
probably.
we'll do it like almost like a book club, because I spend now I don't know why it suddenly, like probably about a month ago, it just clicked, because I did Kara Goucher's book
Oh,
as
I
well.
just started it. Do you
Oh,
like it?
I loved it.
Did you do audiobook or did you read it in
I
person?
did audio. I'm doing
Oh,
more audio because of these long runs. I need something to entertain me.
oh my gosh. Yeah. So I'm doing the audiobook too. And my only struggle is she's sorry, Kara, I love you. Not a great reader out
No,
loud.
I did. Yeah, you had to get past that. I did. I thought the same thing, and I am not a great reader either, so I do know how that is. But yeah, it's a good. The story is good.
Yeah.
I forgot how good she was
Yeah.
when when she's going through her stuff, and where she's finishing in these different races. I'm like, man, I forgot how good she was.
See, I like didn't know much about her and I only started hearing things like with the whole Salazar stuff. And then, I think it was what 2 years ago when I like kind of got deep into talking about that all the time. So like definitely had a lot of info on her then. And that's kind of really all I ever knew about her and then her book. And now I'm like, oh, I have to listen to this. But yeah, I'm super excited to listen to that one. But definitely send me your book recommendations, because I think I have 2 credits on Audible right now. And I'm falling behind on my running books, but I need some more.
Yeah, I'm reading the 80/20. Did I mention 80/20
Oh
yet?
my gosh, what? 80/20? Get out of here. Never
And
heard of
then,
it.
and because we're doing this 12-hour, I'm now all into these ultra books, like, so ultra runner books. So yeah, there's a few things we can sort of talk about in the future as well.
Yeah, I'll have to get some book recommendations and I'll let you know, because I have a couple that I haven't read yet that are on my list, and I'll see if you've read them too.
Yeah, if you have some on your list, yes, because I actually, some of the ones I have read so far are the ones that you've been recommending to me. So
Oh,
like
good.
Living with Seal, that's actually kickstarted me off. Was I wanted to read. That's one of the things on my list, is reading for 30 minutes a day.
Yeah.
And that was one of the books I started with, and it was like, man, this book is good. I liked it.
Well, it's so funny because, and then I really will stop us because people are like, all right, an hour, come on
You
now.
can edit all this. You can edit all this out if you want.
Yeah, right. I was telling you I don't have an editor. You think I'm taking time to edit? But no, with that book too, anybody who's read Living with a Seal by, who was that guy? He like wrote the Knicks song or
It's
whatever.
yeah, it's
Jesse
actually
something. But
yeah.
that's how much I know sports. But he had Dave Goggins come live with him. And as I'm reading the book, I was like, I feel like that's something that you would do, which is why I recommended the book to you. Because I was like, not only does it kind of get you pumped about like working out, but I was like, I could see you being the kind of person who's like, oh yeah, come in here, train me for 30 days, make it as intense as you want.
See, and I wanted to be the other guy. I wanted to be
Oh.
Seal, because I actually went into my closet and threw like almost all the stuff I have in there away. Like I became a minimalist from reading
Yeah.
that book. I'm like, you know what? Do I really need 20 pairs of socks? No, I need like 5. Do I need all these shorts? I haven't worn these shorts in like 2 years. They're gone. So I really have sort of cleaned up my closet, and gave everything out to Goodwill. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah, so
That's
you're gonna
funny.
see. That's why you're gonna see like the same sweatshirt like all the time on me. It's because I only own like 3 sweatshirts now.
I mean, people say that's like a big thing to happiness
Oh
though,
yeah,
is decluttering and
yeah.
minimalizing.
Simplify. Yeah, I'm all over it. We can
Yeah.
talk about that next time too.
Yeah. All right. So yes, actually we are going to have to cut it off, but thank you so much for taking the time, and I will definitely have to have you back because this was fun and there's a lot more to chat about. And because I know you're flexible, you can work around all of my limiting scheduling
Yeah.
situations too.
Yeah, and yeah, we should be doing this on a weekly basis. Just not on for a podcast, but just catching up in general. I don't know why I'm not doing this on like every week.
I know, right? Well,
All
thank
right,
you.
T. Nice seeing you.
I just want to thank my dad again, Jeff Williams, so much for coming on my first episode back and bearing with me through working back out all those podcasting muscles, because it has been a little while. So that was really awesome. Hopefully can have some more chats with him about running. I will put a link to his Instagram, which has nothing to do with running and all things to do with wild animals in his neighborhood. So if you want to check out some cute critters, feel free to check that out. Also, I will definitely keep everybody updated on our training for our 12-hour relay, as well as later down the road, the Rocky Run that we're going to do where the weather is almost always bad. And then when we decide to do a marathon together. So definitely stay tuned for all of that. Other updates for right now, we are doing every other Tuesday for episodes, just as I get back into the swing of things on top of all the other things I'm doing too. What else? And yeah, still working on the YouTube channel. I have a couple videos that are almost completely done that just had a few recording errors. So those will hopefully be out soon as well. Thanks.
Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you rate, review, subscribe, all the things that you can do for a podcast that you enjoy listening to. Make sure you check out social media, our website, any of those things. If you have questions, comments, interview requests, feel free to email me at marikeyrunclub@gmail.com.